there, folks. Welcome back to Prime Mover. I hope everyone's having a great week. I think today's video is going to be a pretty fun one because we're actually going to get to start laying out some of our Kato unitrack. And I have to remember to say that right. It's Kato. So I wanted to get all the track laid out on the plywood today before I secure it down permanently. I just want to make sure that all the track work that I've got is actually going to work according to the template that I've got here. Anyway, I have to remember, since I'm new to this, if I can ask you guys to hit that like button and subscribe and hit the bell icon. That'll help me grow the channel, and I appreciate that so much. So you guys, let's have some fun and let's get started with laying some track down. Well, that took a little bit longer than I thought. I ran into some issues with a couple of the pieces of the track that from my template had actually changed item numbers. So some of the pieces that are in this software may not quite be up to date. One of these is 1 3/4 inches long, and the other one is 1 1/8 inches long. And the 1 3/4 inch piece used to be item 20-070, and the 1 1/8 inch piece used to be 20-071, but recently Kato put those two together in a multi-pack and call it 20-091. So when I first started looking at the track that I had ordered, I was a little panicked, but I was able to finally figure this out. I think I may actually hook up a power pack to it and just run a locomotive around it and just make sure everything seems to be okay. I do know that these turnouts have a way that you can actually switch them for DCC running, but for right now I'm just going to run them with a DC power pack and let's see how that goes. I wanted to share something with you guys before I try to run some trains, and that is how I'm going to be getting power to my track. Kato has come up with a really ingenious way to wire your layout, and you can take the unijoiners, which are really secure. That's one of the things that makes the Kato unitrack so secure, especially for DCC, because they have a really good way to put the track together that has a really secure electrical contact. But these unijoiners, which are between each piece, you can pull these out, and I had already loosened that. So they're in there really snug, but I had loosened that with a pair of tweezers. But they make these terminal unijoiners which have the wires that are already soldered to a unijoiner. So once you've pulled that one out, you can then take the wires on the end of the unijoiner and you simply, as I drop everything, just slide that in and it takes the place of the regular unijoiner, and now you've got power to your track. So I did want to share that with you guys. I think it's a really unique thing that they've come up with. And in addition to this, I'll try to get that other one in there. They've also got insulating unijoiners. So I will actually be creating blocks around this layout so that I can have them put into a circuit breaker. So you can replace the unijoiners that come with the Kato Unitrack with insulating unijoiners to create blocks. So I thought that was really unique and wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, so I've got my trusty old Tech 4 MRC 220 power pack connected to the track with the Kato terminal unijoiners. I've had this thing for probably 25 years and it's been bulletproof, so it still works great. It even has built-in momentum control, but I've got that turned off for right now. So I've got out one of my favorite Kato locomotives. It's Alco RSC2 in Seaboard airline paint, and of course, if you're going to run a locomotive, you might as well have a boxcar, and you got to have a caboose. I'm of the old-fashioned ideology that all trains need cabooses, but anyway, I digress. So we're going to run this around the layout here, testing to see how it goes through the turnouts. I did have a comment from my first video. One of the guys actually mentioned that I should be using Kato number 6 turnouts, and I would have loved to have used them because I like the longer throw turnouts. I'm not going to be running a whole lot of 6-axle stuff except for maybe some E-units, so I'm not super worried about that. But because of the size constraints with me wanting to keep this less than 60 inches, I couldn't really make this layout work if I used number 6 turnouts. It would have stretched everything out, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything works okay with the number 4s. We'll see how this goes, but let's give her a spin around the track and hope things go well. Those little Kato N-scale units, the locomotives run so smooth and quiet. I do plan to put DCC and sound in that eventually. So here comes our first test through some turnouts where they're going to have to make some turns. One okay through that one. Okay through that. One over the crossover well. I'm happy so far. I do plan to actually break this up into 4 blocks. When I get ready to wire it for DCC, I'm going to be using some DCC specialties PSXX circuit breakers just to make sure that I've got some circuit breaker protection. It can keep from burning up your decoders and your locomotives and the motors. So far, so good. I mean, I know this all has to be pulled back up and putting down the pink foam and getting all that done before we actually secure the track down. So hopefully it runs as well after that as it is just in this little test here. Before it makes its loop back around, I am going to go ahead and throw that turnout so it goes up the industrial track here, just to make sure it looks like it's going to go through that turnout okay too. And went through just fine. Going into that last little track. I'm very pleased. very cool. How cool is that? We got to run some trains on the new layout. I do have about an inch on each end, but I did want to leave some space at the front of the layout where I can put some structures and trees and stuff just to sort of break it up. I think it makes it more visually interesting when you're running trains if there's actually stuff between your line of sight and the track and where the trains are running. It's time to glue down some foam. And we're going to be using some good old-fashioned wood glue, which is safe with extruded foam and styrofoam. You do have to be careful. Some glues will actually melt foam. CA glue, or what people call super glue, will melt extruded foam and styrofoam, so you definitely don't want to use that unless you want your foam to melt. I actually bought these in 1x1 foot sections. These are 1/2 inch board, which I think will be fine since I'm doing N scale. If I was doing a HO scale, I would probably go with the 1 inch foam, just because it gives you a little more playroom with doing some sculpting and texturing for different changes in elevation. But these just came, I got them from Amazon. They came in a box of 4 each, and I've got enough to cover the whole layout. And then I do have some other Woodland Scenic styrofoam risers that I got to make some elevation changes. So let's get to gluing down some foam. These boards are not actually 12 inches by 12 inches because there's about an inch gap left, and this table is exactly 60 inches long. So I should have probably measured these before I started putting them down, but it won't matter because I've got a couple of extra pieces, plus the back side extends quite a bit over the edge of the table. So I've got and I've had this for probably 30 years. This is the Wonder Cutter, and I don't know who actually made this. I got this from a model railroad store called Aardvarks in Nashville in probably 1996, and it holds 2D batteries. And when you make this connection, that wire right there gets really hot, and you can see it smoking. It cuts through styrofoam like butter. So I can just run along the back side of this. Do it this way. And cut my styrofoam right up against the edge of the table. No mess, no fuss, no sawing with a saw. Nice and clean. And now I can take these pieces and cut them so that I can glue them at the edge where the table is a little longer than the foam extended to. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I got the track laid out on top of the pink foam. Everything seems to be fitting just the way I thought it would. So I'm going to go ahead now and trace out where the roadbed is on the pink foam, so that as I lift these pieces up before I permanently secure them down, if I wanted to carve out like a slight incline or carve a little ditch in, or even if I want to build some elevation with my risers for my bridge, I know exactly where my track's going to go when I pull those pieces up, so I can lay them back down in the exact right position. So I think this is pretty much going to wrap up this episode. We've got our pink foam down on top of our table. We've got the track laid back out. We've got everything traced out in the pink foam so I can pull this up, see if I want to make some elevation changes in the foam before I permanently secure the track down. So I think I've decided I'm going to replace that Kato bridge with an Atlas N-scale bridge that's basically the same length. That one is about 9 3/4 inches long. The Atlas one is 10 inches long. So I could replace it without having to make major track changes. And I think it'll look a lot more prototypical for a bridge that would have been seen in the golden era of railroading, the steam to diesel transition era, 1940s and 50s, especially in the Southeast, which is what we model mostly. There might be some Southern Pacific and Santa Fe and a little bit of New York Central and Rutland thrown in there. But anyway, it'll be more prototypical for a North American style bridge. So I'm probably going to order those pieces, the bridge, some bridge abutments, some trestles, and get those sort of situated. I do have the Woodland Scenics styrofoam risers, which once I get those pieces, then I'll get those pulled out. We'll get that set up so that I can sort of test fit everything before I start securing it down. So that'll be in our next episode, and I hope you guys will join me. And if I can ask one last time, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified when some new videos come out. It really helps me grow the channel, and I do appreciate it, you guys. But I have one final thought to leave with you. There were these two drunk hobos, and they were struggling getting up the tracks together, and one of them finally said, "This must be the longest staircase in the world." And the other one replied in a drunken lisp, "Yeah, but it's these low handrails that are killing me." Anyway, thanks for visiting Prime Mover, where we play with trains, we learn about railroading, and we share the joy of trains with others. I hope you'll come back again soon.